Silksong. So, between our last session and this one, I got myself into a bit of a pickle. I wandered around for a bit, mopping up some enemies, exploring new areas, and then I wandered into the Hunter's Run, something like that. The place with a bunch of ants and spikes everywhere. And deep within that area, I died. And as I tried to make my way back to where I had dropped my stuff, I died again. And this is a sort of Souls-like game, in the sense that if you do not collect your things, you will lose them. So I ended up losing somewhere around 500 rosaries, which was a pretty crushing blow because that was most of what I had earned up until that point in the game. And to add insult to injury, I had not purchased the maps for many of the areas. And so I traveled out again in an attempt to find more rosaries, find some new areas where I might get a nice little chunk of money, and then return and buy the maps. However, I got hopelessly lost and just kept on wandering through areas I had already been in, repeatedly stumbling into dead ends that I had already seen. At the 7th bell tolls and 30 measures, 4 beats smoke rock, 8 beats sweet smelt, mark of fealty, all workers. At the 9th bell tolls and 20 measures, 2 beats smoke rock, 7 beats sweet smelt, mark of fealty, all workers. So, you did not miss much. I, eventually just farmed enough money to, buy the maps, and then I saw the path forward, an area that I had not gone down, and then I explored a little bit over here. I encountered a new boss that I had haven't beaten yet. I'll beat her in this video. And so yeah, you didn't miss much interesting. It was mostly me wandering around areas, being very lost and confused. Which, as I've said before, is one of the aspects of Hollow Knight, the first one, that, you know, I don't really like. I'm not a fan of the Metroidvania genre, but I like Hollow Knight enough that, you know, I sort of persist through that stuff. But anyway, yeah, the content of this video will be a lot more actual progression. Although I think I do die in this one a lot. There's oh, let's talk to Forge Daughter. Oh, small pointy bug, why do you bother us at our work? The sound of your craft called me to investigate. What is your duty here? Are you a smith of some kind? A smith? Hardly so crude. We are Forge Daughter. How can a pointy bug not tell? your skills. If you are as talented as you suggest, would you lend me your aid? I've lacked for my usual tools, and I suspect you could craft fine replacements. Blades and traps, no doubt. We know your type. Of sorts, but maybe strange to this land. Some would likely prove fine challenge for your craft. Then we'll construct them, but you'll provide the materials and compensation for our time. So, Forge Daughter can make us sting shards, magma bell, seems to reduce or maybe negate lava damage, a crafting kit, and a shard bundle, which is not very useful to my mind. Converting rosaries into shards. What I really need at this point in the game is something where I can convert my shards into rosaries, because everything is so expensive with rosary cost, and I have no rosaries like ever. Ballo says, if you need something, talk to the boss. I'm busy. Every time I get a handful of rosaries, I'm always immediately spending them on trying to open up a new Bell Beast station or whatever. So, they go quite quickly in this land. Here is a heavy door chained with a simple padlock, so I have to remember this place and return when we have a key to open it. But yeah, I get smacked around pretty heavily in this episode today. I think it's down in these forge areas. The enemies that do double damage are pretty brutal down there. And I might be playing a little recklessly, so plays into it, but there's a guy who has, been on my channel for a bit now. His handle is Spirit of Negation, I believe. And he was talking about, oh, by the way, this is a boss called Lace. She had a little intro dialogue when I showed up the first time. And I gave her one shot, and then I got pretty close, but decided that maybe I should beat her on camera, so I recorded. This is our second duel. But Spirit of Negation had left a comment on the first Silksong video where he talked about how crazy the amount of double damage was in this game. And I am inclined to agree with him. I have encountered lots of enemies that are doing double damage. And I would say this game is substantially harder at this point, in my experience, than the first Hollow Knight. Like, I'm pretty good at these kinds of games. Not that my gameplay in Silksong so far would really show it. I've been kind of, I think I'm out of practice. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Because I have a sort of a theory about why that is. But yeah, Silksong is pretty brutal. The first Hollow Knight, I'm pretty sure I like when you die, you can go collect your stuff again. And, you know, realistically, I probably lost it once or twice. But I really don't remember ever actually struggling to get back to where my stuff dropped. You know, Hollow Knight was a tough game, but it wasn't, like, insanely difficult, in my opinion, until, like, the DLCs, where I felt the difficulty amped up pretty heavily. But Silksong is kind of kicking my butt. I'm getting smacked around a fair amount. And I think part of that is that it's a harder game and less forgiving, but also, as I said, I think I'm kind of out of practice. Part of that is just because it's been a long time since I played the first Hollow Knight. But I also think it's because of how much Night Rain I've played. Elden Ring, Night Rain. That has been, you know, my main entertainment game in recent months if I have some time for a bit of gaming. Also, this is a new area called Far Fields. And the thing about Night Rain is that it encourages speed and maybe even a bit of recklessness, you might say, in the combat. And so I have been playing a lot of Night Rain and have observed myself becoming more and more reckless, focusing more and more on dealing damage over defense, trading hits rather than, you know, fighting safely. And Hollow Knight is reminding me that that is not the optimal way to play these kinds of games typically. Or at least, you know, for me, you really want to focus on defense a lot more and not get greedy with dealing hits. Because if you can just stay alive and patiently get your damage out, you will prevail. But with the Night Rain, I'm just like a charging little demon. That was really embarrassing. Just dropping into the lava twice in a row. But yeah, that's, I think, part of what I am having to relearn as I'm playing Silksong is I actually need to be kind of cautious and play slowly and more intelligently. But I'm sort of improving. I've played again since recording this video, and I'm starting to actually, you know, have a little more sense, I guess. Actually, like, preserving my own health rather than just recklessly trying to deal as much damage as possible. So I'm relearning the skills, but I am definitely enjoying the game so far. It, as I said, is quite difficult. And I think, you know, maybe they could have just, like, reduced your number of starting masks, and then made fewer enemies do 1 damage, or rather 2 damage. You know, that doesn't really, it's not a huge deal, but there is a lot of 2 damage stuff. I also, as I said, find money to be very, very rare. Shell shards are useless. They're not actually useless. I mean, you craft items with them. Oh, this area, I get absolutely stomped in this area for like 3 lives or something, so prepare to watch me get wrecked a bunch down here. Getting used to the AoE of all the various enemies down there. Yeah, shell shards, at least at my level of progression, are very unimportant. You just kind of passively accrue all the shell shards that you need. But the rosaries are very few and far between. You can, you know, farm basic enemies for them if you want, but I am a little, I don't know, it's fine, but I think maybe they're being a bit too stingy with rewards. Again, just at this point in my playthrough, how I'm feeling. Oftentimes I'll beat a boss, and I'll be like, wait, no loot. Or I'll find a hidden area, and it will just be, you know, a box of shell shards or something, and sometimes even, like, actually nothing. And that's a little disappointing. But I don't know, it's probably intentional. For some reason they want you to be more desperate, I guess, in this game, maybe. They want your resources to be stretched thinner. But as I said, I'm barely making enough rosaries to open up, like the bellways stations that I come across. I rarely even buy benches at this point because I just don't have the money for them, and even if I do have the money, I'm like, I need to, you know, I need to save that money for the next bell station that I find. Because as I said, you know, as I've alluded to in the past, exploration and mobility in these games is one of the parts that I find a little tedious, sort of returning through areas that you've already cleared a lot of times. So I do highly prioritize buying maps and buying bell stations so that I can maximize the efficiency of my playtime, I guess. You know, I don't have to spend as much time running through areas repeatedly. And the maps help me make sure that I'm always, you know, exploring new areas and not wandering around places I've already been through. But yeah, this area, I'm pretty sure I die again. These little slug creatures, they just do crazy damage. And then that big boy over there throws bombs that do 2 damage, and it's all AoE, like big attacks and stuff, so I was getting kind of donked down here. But such is the life of Hornet. I was thinking about, you know, just eating those hits again. I was thinking about the vibes of Silksong versus the first Hollow Knight. And one thing that I was feeling, again, having played a bit more of this game than I even get to in this session, I've been feeling more, I guess that this game is a little grimmer, maybe, a little less, has a little less lightness to it. And I was thinking about why that is, because, you know, there's been funny NPCs already. I've certainly encountered plenty of NPCs that, you know, have quirky personalities and bring some of that entertainment and the lightheartedness of, you know, that was pretty common in the first one. But then I was thinking about it more, and I was thinking that the reason this game feels a little more serious, I guess, is because of the player character. It's because of Hornet. Hornet is a very serious character. In the first game, the Hollow Knight that you play, the vessel, is, first of all, he doesn't speak. Well, also, he's not a he. For some reason, I mean, that's just how I think of it. I mean, it's hard to even describe. Does this thing even have, like, a personality? Is it, you know, how do you... Anyway, I'm not gonna get into the whole, philosophy of what that character even is, like, basically just a bowl, but, obviously it's quite different, from, I mean, Hornet being a girl is called out specifically because she's called the gendered child in the first game, which suggests that all of the other, children of the Pale King are, you know, non-gendered. For some reason I can't help but think of the main character as a boy, though, or just using he, him pronouns. But anyway, with that tangent thoroughly explored, in Hollow Knight, the main character doesn't speak, first of all, and is also very small and cute. Just kind of adorable. And has to, like, look up at most enemies and look up at people that he talks to. And it, I don't know, it just adds a lightness to everything that you do, because the character, the knight, is always, I don't know, just looks a little funny, looks a little silly, brings a levity and a brightness and a sort of humor to every situation that you find yourself in. But Hornet, on the other hand, is physically, you know, design-wise, does not have that level of comedy. She is taller. She has a less silly design, a less sort of cute design. The knight from the first game is like this little square head, and it's just, you know, it's just adorable. Hornet has a sleek, more sort of predatory design, and is not cute in that way. And added onto that, she speaks, obviously, where the original knight does not. And her personality is a very It is a very humorless one. She is rude off, not like a jerk, but there's that one, quest where you return, like, shell shards to, Flick the Fixer. And when he says thank you, Hornet's like, shut up, I didn't do it to be helpful. I did it so that I could gain some advantage over you. And I was like, yo, Hornet, like, why are you like that? Don't be rude. But that's fine, that's her personality. But it adds to a lack of humor and a lack of brightness in the game, because she is like that, and she's putting that personality onto all of your interactions with the NPCs. So, it's not like a major issue or anything, but I do find myself missing the ever-present lightness from the first game, because the first game was very dark. It was a world of collapse, and anyway, I'm gonna talk to this person, so I'll stop yapping for a minute here. The seamstress. Well, aren't you a sight? No, don't tell me you're as odd as they come. Your poise, your form, are you hunted, pursued? The Citadel would see a fine price in you. It is as you say, madam. Veiled bugs brought me to your land. I seek them now for answers. Fierce too. These are bleak times, but a powerful stray like you could certainly cause some change. Well then, I've no love for that holy caste, and I do worry for this kingdom's alien state. If you're seeking to settle a score, perhaps I can lend some aid. If you're planning to ascend from these low fields, you'll be needing some lift, and I'm just the bug to help. Head for the caves beyond my home. The bugs within produce a marvelous spine, flexible yet strong. Collect their spines, return to me, and I'll soon have your old cloak transformed into something far more buoyant. Flexile spines, wish promised. A smart choice. Get out there and gather those spines, and best you be quick about it. As nice as it is to have the company, if you hang around too long, those Citadel bugs will turn their gaze on me as well. Alright, so we have a quest now to gather spines to make a cloak, which will give us more exploration potential. Will give us some more movement abilities. And you'll see I don't quite grok the exact specifications of how you collect these spines. I thought that these spines just dropped from killing the enemies, but it takes me a bit to recognize that I actually have to pick up the spines from the ground where they land. Spine core, flexible fiber. So anyway, if you're yelling at me to actually break the spines and pick them up, I will get it eventually, but I'm being a little silly at first. But yeah, as I was saying, I do miss the humor of the first game a little bit. it's fine that it's not here in this one, but the first game was just so dark, and this one is as well, with a lot of the, context of the game. These collapsed kingdoms, people falling to madness, existential threats of, like, mindlessness and insanity and all this. To have a bit of brightness, a bit of humor added into that mix goes a long way for some variety. But it's not a massive problem. It's just something that I've found myself thinking about as I'm playing. Other than that, let's see if I can think of any thoughts I've had. Definitely progression is a lot slower, I think. It feels that way anyways. I've been playing for maybe about 5 hours now, and I've only collected one mask shard. I could buy another from the starting merchant, I know that. But that feels pretty slow in comparison to the first game. And, see, I guess, there was you could increase your nail damage in the first game, but you had to get, like, all the way to the City of Tears. That might have been longer than 5 hours. That was not deep in the game, but, somewhat deep in the game. So, I don't know. It definitely feels like progression is slower. That's partially, as I said, with my feelings about the rosaries, where the game is really stingy with handing out rosaries. And so, obviously, certain players could prioritize buying more abilities and things. As I said, I tend to spend my rosaries more on maps and bell stations. But, yeah, other than those, maybe semi-critiques, and they're not even critiques so much as just observing differences between this game and the first game. It's not inherently worse to have a slower progression, right? It's just a different choice, a different style. Just wondering how long it is before I finally realize that I have to actually attack the spines on the ground. I remember at this point I was wandering around and I was like, damn, like, the first few enemies dropped spines and now they haven't dropped them in, like, 8 kills or something crazy. That's kind of annoying. I was thinking, why would they put drop rate percentage on a quest like this? And of course, I'm just being very foolish. But there we go. I finally made the connection. But yeah, other than those thoughts, it plays pretty similarly to the first game. I have discovered new movesets. There's a crest system in this game where you can find crests and they change how your needle moveset works. And they also change the number of crest adornments. I forget their actual name, the little, abilities that you can put on your crest. thousands of those. And one of the things I talked about in the first video was getting used to Hornet's diagonal pogo ability, which I was struggling with. That was a big issue in my, why I died in the ant area was because there's a lot of pogoing there, and I was just messing up the diagonal pogo a lot. But I have found a couple of new crests, and they both have a straight downward pogo, so I haven't, there's one that I've been using more because it has a special ability on it where it collects more silk, and that's pretty nice. You know, you use silk for everything. I mostly use it for healing, because I take a lot of damage, so I like to have silk stored up to heal. Well then, I can tell by the rattling from within your cloak, your hunt was a success. If you'll kindly pass over the spines, I can get to work. Give spine core, yes. Flexile spines, wish granted. Perfect. These should be more than enough. Wait there just a moment, and we'll soon have you soaring up and away from these lowlands. And the seamstress gets to work, modifying our cloak. Received the drifter's cloak. Hold A in air. Flare the cloak to ride strong winds, or glide gracefully. Oh, we're gonna see naked Hornet here. This is fine work, seamstress. Your modifications will aid me greatly. You're quite welcome, dear. I have a rare opportunity to practice such intricate sewing, and a warrior sword like you will be able to properly appreciate my additions. Float away now, stray one, and do try not to die. I'd rather not have my hard work go to waste. I'll grant you my courtesy, stray one. I'll even offer aid where I'm able. Just don't be hanging around too long. I may not be a fan of that citadel, but I'm smart enough to avoid its ire. Yeah, I wanted to call out Naked Hornet because in, when I first played this, Drifter's Cloak, simple protective garb sewn through with flexible spines. When I was recording this footage and saw that little snippet, it made me laugh out loud. Just a moment, dear, before you scurry off. I'm loath to spoil the surprise, but curiosity begs me to ask, do you know why they pursue you, those citadel bugs? No certainty, but I've a strong suspicion. They hunt me for my nature, for the silk produced within my shell. Aha, truth, no doubt. In Farloom, yours is a rare skill, prized beyond measure, to channel one soul within a thread, soul and silk inseparably linked. It is a skill almost lost from Farloom. Those old weavers shared it, but they are long dead now. There is another alive in this kingdom that shares my nature, or some part of it. I've seen silk similar to my own. It snares the shells of those upon the roads. I've seen it wrap them, possess them whole. There is will within that thread, one that seems to come from somewhere above us. The Citadel. Good sharp sight you've got. That Citadel. All roads towards and all answers waiting, and a long climb up there, my dear. Now, it's time you get going. Your style and your silk sure are fine, but stay too long and you'll only be trouble for me. Alright, well, that ends our dealing with the seamstress. So, we can now ride these air currents. And that will give us a lot of ability to explore new areas. And we can also drift like this, which also makes me laugh. It's the same reason I laughed when I saw Naked Hornet, because just the tiny little skinny body is so funny to me. You know, you see, you're looking at her big cloak the whole time, and it gives her kind of form and body. And then you see the little stick figure underneath, and I just found that pretty funny. So, yeah, overall I'm finding this a great sequel so far. It's interesting, like, going up as the primary direction now. In the first game, you know, you were generally heading downward. In this game, you're largely starting at the bottom and then moving ever upward. It doesn't really seem like a huge change, but I don't know, I think it gives sort of more of an effort to everything. You know, if you're always going down, there's something easier about going down because, you know, you can just fall. And as long as you're falling, you're probably going the right way. Bone scroll, crude journal made of coarse fabric and bone, left by a fallen pilgrim. A relic of Farnham's past, interesting to collectors of historical items. So we will, at some point, be finding, as in the first game where you could sell historical relics, it seems that we will be finding an avid collector of historical items at some point, which will be a nice way to earn some more rosaries. I also need to sell my moss berries to the moss druid. I don't know how many rosaries that will give you, but given my struggle for money, that would be a nice way to make a little more. But yeah, well, now that I've talked about Silksong for a bit, maybe I should do a little inaudible whispering, perhaps. Been mixing that into my videos a little more recently. Doing some inaudible raise your voice. Have no fear, pilgrim true. Believing is a happy choice. Hi there, aren't these fields marvelous? And above us are the bountiful moors, where every pilgrim can fill their belly. These hot fields are a wonder indeed, but hunters prowl the long grass. Playing your instrument will only alert them to your presence. Well then, alert them I shall, for where many gather, great songs are sung. This poor traveler finds her resolve waning. When I first greeted her, her voice was so hoarse I could scarcely hear it. 'Tis no cause for worry though, my song will lift her from her torpor. Join your voice with mine, red maiden, and together we shall rouse our fellow pilgrim. Sister, sister, tired and glum, we will sing and you can hum. Together we shall overcome. We can talk to weary pilgrim who says, ooh, ah. Here's where I made a little mistake. I inserted these rosaries and then walked away, not realizing that the door would close. So as it turns out, you have to insert rosaries every time you want to enter this building. So I was robbed of 30 rosaries there. Pilgrim's Rest. Here's Mort. Come to rest your weary body. The climb is agonizing, and even the devout must mind their limits. I'm impressed to find any without firm claw upon a weapon that could ascend so far. Indeed, we're lucky to have made it here, luckier than many others. Or perhaps the difference between the lucky and unlucky is merely faith. Now, while we rest, shall we make trade? If you have rosaries, I'll take them gladly. He sells a weighted belt, a tool pouch, a memory locket, and a rosary string. So I'll buy the memory locket and a rosary string. By the way, you spend 80 rosaries on it, and then you get a string of rosaries, which is worth 60. Yes, that's better. Sharing your devotion with me will surely bring you luck. So, it's a way to keep your rosaries secure, but you pay a 25% cost to do it, so it's a bit of a tough price to pay, in my opinion. Certainly, a nice thing to do if you really want to make sure your rosaries are safe, but the price is pretty steep, so just something to be aware of. Not interested in trade, I wonder. Alright, we will leave this rotten house that charges you 30 every time you want to go in. Curses on its name. And I think that will bring our Hollow Knight adventure today to an end, as we sit here and listen